Okay, 1, 2, 1, 2. I think we're good. Okay, like I said, I'm really excited for tonight's session. We'll be doing our news roundup as usual. Then, after a 10-minute break, we'll be getting right into our capstone panel where we'll be joined by 3 ISS grads to talk about their experience with the capstone as well as answer some of your questions about this mysterious project at the end of our degrees here, at least for the ISS students. But if you saw my announcement earlier, we do have a big announcement, and I'm really excited for this one as well. Yeah, big announcement. Applications are open for next year's team. So we'll be posting a Google form. We'll post it right now, but we'll also make an announcement with some of the other details. It's that time of the year again where we got to look for new, passionate people. Yeah, go ahead. Okay. Yeah. Discord. Change windows. Anyways, where was I? Yeah, so we're looking for passionate people who are interested in being a part of the exec team. It's a really great opportunity to add to your resume. It's a club which gets recognized by employers in the industry, and it's just a great way to gain experience. So I'm just going to briefly go over the various roles we're looking for because we have quite a few actually. First off, we have the producer. This is who handles event live streaming. They perform necessary video editing. This is a small part. It's just going on YouTube and like cutting out the parts where we aren't talking, as well as set up audio tech for the events. So if you have any experience with stuff like Twitch streaming or anything with OBS, this might be a really good role for you. Even if you don't have that experience, but you're still interested, feel free to apply. This was how I got started with the club, and I had zero streaming experience yet. I still made it. We also have community manager. They're responsible for student outreach / engagement, promoting our events, promoting the club. They make and post the announcements as well as manage our social media and websites. So if you think you might be an outgoing person, you think you might be a little convincing for recruitment, consider this role. Event manager, they manage the content team who's responsible for sessions like this as well as our workshops, as well as helping out with presentation. Content devs, this is a really good one because you're creating the presentations, you're researching the latest news stories, getting that cutting edge knowledge. And when it comes to finding co-ops, presentation skills and communication is really important. So if you want to help sharpen your skills before you go out for the job hunt, this would be a really good role for that. CTF coordinator, so moving on to the CTF team. The CTF coordinator, they handle the logistics of the event planning, the schedule, as well as contacting sponsors. So this role is a really great opportunity to build your network with some amazing industry pros, as well as always promoting the CTF. In terms of infrastructure dev, you're making the website for the CTF on CTFD. These are kind of the technologies that Vlad himself recommended: Google Cloud, Docker, Kubernetes, Terraform, Cloudflare DNS configuration. This is the type of stuff you'd get to learn about. We aren't expecting you to know all of this stuff here. We're all students at the end of the day. So if you're interested in learning about this stuff, apply. One note is Linux knowledge is important. Vlad said so, and I trust Vlad. The CTF challenge devs, they're the ones who make the challenges for the CTF. This is a good way to hone your skills in a specific way because we have a lot of different categories: forensics, cryptology, binary exploitation, so on. You don't have to have CTF experience necessarily. It'd be a plus, but I don't think all of our challenge devs this year had CTF experience. But that's just another part of the responsibility. If you don't have CTF experience and you want to be a challenge dev, you got to have some plans to help prepare yourself to make these challenges. And then we also have the CTF challenge dev lead. If you're aware a bit of software engineering, basically the scrum master for challenge development, you're managing the challenge dev team, making sure everything's on track, as well as assisting in challenge development. Lastly, we're also looking for a new president. So you got to collaborate and lead the ISSessions exec team. It's a big responsibility because, well, you are in charge of the club, which is cool, but you also got to be the one to take that initiative, set the club's agenda, ensure all the club requirements are met, as well as communicating with many different parties, a few of those listed right here. I'll say it was a big responsibility, more than I thought, honestly, but still super rewarding work. So those are the roles we're looking for. If you have any questions about specifics, don't be afraid to reach out to any of us. And lastly, before we get into the news, I just want to offer a bit of advice for anybody interested in applying. So, if you think you might be interested in applying, you're on the fence right now thinking, should I do it? Should I not? My answer, I might be a bit biased, but you should do it. Um, a lot of people are worried they aren't very qualified. Like I said, when I applied for producer when I was in first year, I didn't have any OBS experience. I wasn't chosen for either of my roles because I'm the best hacker man out there getting into the mainframes and stuff. I got in there because I took a couple media production classes in high school. And during the interview, I was able to demonstrate that I had some passion and I had that drive. So don't count yourself out, is what I'm saying. Historically speaking, most of the people who apply end up on the exec team. We are always trying to bring as many people as we can. Now, if I'm being really convincing and we get like 40 applications, obviously most people won't be on the exec team, but I'm just saying, historically speaking, if you take the time to do an application and get an interview, odds are you're going to be on the exec team. Also, if you make an application, you will get an interview. I promise you that. So applications will be open until I think March 16th. So they're open for quite a while. So you have some time to make up your mind. Once again, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to any of these things. So I hope you guys do it because trust me, it's super rewarding work and really helps prepare you for COLA. But with that, we're ready to get into the news roundup. Jackson with a Y, take it away.
Thank you, Jack, for that great introduction. Hey everyone, in today's talk, I will be discussing a massive ransomware attack that has been targeting VMware ESXi servers worldwide. This attack has caused widespread disruption and data loss for affected organizations and has prompted concerns about the security of virtualization systems. So the attack is being carried out by a highly sophisticated ransomware group called Ransom EXX, which has been known to carry out similar attacks in the past. The group is demanding a ransom payment in exchange for the decryption of affected servers. The hackers use a vulnerability that affects the service location protocol service and allows attackers to exploit arbitrary code remotely. The SLP can be disabled on any ESXi servers that haven't been updated in order to further mitigate the risk of compromise. The Computer Emergency Response Group of France voted in its notice. Furthermore, cybersecurity experts are warning that this attack may be the start of a new trend where attackers focus on virtualization systems, which have become increasingly critical for many organizations. This ransomware attack serves as a wake-up call for all of us to take the security of our virtualization system seriously. We must take the necessary steps to protect ourselves from future attacks, and it is our responsibility to stay vigilant and proactive in protecting our system and data. Now, I'll pass it over to Nero for the next news roundup.
Hey everyone, this next story is about In the Box, which is a malware marketplace that is currently selling 1,894 web injects targeting bank, cryptocurrency exchange, and e-commerce apps on Android phones. So just a bit of background, web injects are packages that inject HTML or JavaScript code into content before it's rendered on a web browser. So essentially they can alter what the user sees at their end. These web injects are compatible with many different types of well-known Android malwares such as Alien, Metadroid, Cerberus, and Hydra. So when a device is infected, the malware checks what apps are present and pulls the corresponding web injects from its control server. When the user launches the app, the malware loads the overlay that mimics the interface of the real app and steals the user's information, for example, banking credentials. In the Box has been selling web injects since 2020, and currently you can purchase web inject packages for $3,000 to $6,000 or individually for $30. And most recently, In the Box web injects were part of a phishing campaign last month that targeted Spanish banks. I'll pass it over to Patrick.
My article is how how hackers breached GitHub and desktop and Atom. So on now last Monday, GitHub revealed that unidentified threat actors have been successful in obtaining encrypted code, signing signatures for specific versions of GitHub for desktop, for Mac and Atom apps. On December 7th, 2022, the Microsoft owns subsidiary claimed to have discovered illegal access to the number of repositories, including those for out-of-date GitHub-owned companies, utilized to the conception and development of GitHub desktops in Atom. The Atom was phased out in December 2022, and Windows users of GitHub were unaffected by it. According to reports, repositories were copied a date earlier using a hacked personal access token, or a PAT, linked to a machine account. The hacked credentials have since been revoked, and none of the repositories have had any data on any customers. On February 2nd, 2023, the 3 compromised certificates, 2 Windows-specific DigiCert code signatures, signed signatures, and 1 Apple Developer ID certificate will be revoked. And on January 4th, 2023, a new version of desktop software was produced, according to the code hosting platform, and it was signed with fresh certificates and the threat actor was unaware of. The hacker credentials have been since revoked, and none of the repositories have any data of the customers. Now let's pass it to Singh.
Hi, everybody. So my story this week is on Go Anywhere MFT. The secure web file transfer solution Go Anywhere MFT, or Managed File Transfer, was compromised to a zero-day remote code execution on exposed administrator consoles. Normally, it provides companies with a way to securely transfer files while auditing the logs of who accesses the files at what time and so on. The exploit requires access to the administrative console, not normally exposed to the internet. The attack vector of the console should only be available within a private company network through a VPN or through a whitelisted IP address running cloud environments such as Azure or AWS. There's no current patch known, but Forda provides a mitigation option by editing the web XML file in the installed directory and removing a specific servlet mapping configuration within that file. Fortran has also temporarily shut down its SaaS solution while they resolve the issue and advise admins to audit their installations for any signs of non-existent or disabled super user creating admins, anything suspicious. Approximately 151 out of 1,008 servers in the US were exposed to the internet, and it does seem small, but a lot of the organizations tend to transfer sensitive files like local governments, healthcare companies, banks, energy firms, and more, and those could be used for extortion. I'll pass it on to Tony.
Hey guys. So the news article I'm bringing to you guys today is about electric vehicle charging stations. So I don't know if this will apply to many of you guys, but two new security vulnerabilities were discovered in several electric vehicle changing systems, which could potentially expose charging stations to remote shutdowns, or even worse, expose them to data and energy theft. The vulnerabilities were discovered in version 1.6J of the Open Charge Point protocol, which uses WebSockets for communication between charging stations and charging station management systems. The vulnerability exploits this CSMS because it does not define how new connections should be handled when there is already an active connection. This lack of clear guidelines for multiple connections can be exploited by attackers to hijack the connection between the charger and the CSMS. This can result in one of these scenarios: a denial of service to the CSMS provider, and it closes the original connection when a new connection is established. And even worse, information theft when the two connections are kept alive, but responses are redirected to the new connection, allowing the attacker to pull personal data such as credit card information. And combining the mishandling of new connections with weak authentication could also lead to DDoS attacks on the electric vehicle supply equipment network. And this is Jess, but
Yeah, so Jess is online right now. I just gotta mute ourselves, and then Jess will be able to take it away. Mason, can you unserver that for me? Okay.
All right, hello everyone. So my article today talks about DDoS as a service. So denial as a service as a service. A platform named Passion has been used in recent attacks against medical institutions in the US and elsewhere, many other countries. And the platform essentially allows for customers to select their attack vectors, just like DNS flooding, ICMP attacks, to select their attack vectors, duration, and intensity. And this absolves the need for attackers to build their own botnets. So they kind of outsourced their attack capabilities, and people could just purchase them online now. This platform was discovered by an Israeli cybersecurity company called Redware, as they noticed that it had ties to Russian hacking groups such as Killnet and Venom. And it's been proven effective against DDoS mitigation providers like Cloudflare, and Google Shield.
Thank you, content team, for delivering the news once again. We'll be taking our 10-minute break just so we can get our panel set up for you guys. I'll put the CCR code on screen. Mason will post the CCR form in Discord, stream questions. So 10 minutes, see you guys at 7:32. I think we're ready for the Capstone panel to get started. We got our panelists lined up for you guys. Real quick before we get into the questions, just introduce yourselves and then what your project was for the Capstone, and then we'll get the ball rolling.
Sure. All right. I guess I'm first. Hi, I'm Talha. My project was called RFID on heat. It was mainly combining an RFID sensor and a heat sensor to do some security stuff. That explaining things away.
Good enough, yeah. Hey everyone, my name is Kurtz. I work at Bell. I do threat hunting. And my capstone project was leveraging machine learning to identify malicious behavior in StarCraft.
Hi, I'm Usama. I work at Deloitte within Risk Advisory, and my capstone was conducting digital forensics and digitalized containers.
All right, thank you. So just to get started, you gave us your ideas here. Were these ideas that you had for a long time, or did they kind of change over time?
So I can go. Yeah. I knew I wanted to do something related to video games because that had been my passion in the past, and I just kind of stopped. But I wanted to do something that involved video games, and I also wanted to make sure that I learned something new that wasn't taught in the program, and machine learning wasn't taught in our program at the time. I don't know if it is now, but so I just tried to look for an angle to combine, information security, video games, and machine learning to come up with a capstone that I would be interested in and engaged in.
Yeah, for me it was more so like we had the forensics course right before the capstone year, so like both me and my partner were kind of really interested in forensics at the time. And it happened that my capstone partner got into forensics as his co-op. So he had a little bit of experience, and we were also just messing around with like Docker containers. So we kind of mixed the two together and kind of just did that as our capstone.
The idea I had now was not my original idea. I thought it would be cool to do something more with the cell phone blockers, because there's some cool stuff you can do with like picking up people's IMSI numbers as they go through the air, which I thought was going to be cool. I presented that originally, but that was shot down. So this idea actually came from my partner who suggested it, because while we were on our co-op, it was just like a main problem that happened all the time. I forgot my card, someone else forgot their card. It's like, oh, I forgot my card, can I be let in? So obviously that was a pretty big security risk, like not knowing. So it kind of just stemmed off of that.
So you mentioned how your idea got shot down. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you basically have to pitch your idea to the guy in charge of the program.
The dean, yes.
Can we just kind of go over the process of the capstone a bit and what we can expect from the capstone project?
Yeah. So I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but every single student pitches an idea. Like every single student has to come up with an idea. Even if you want to work on a team of a certain 3 people, all 3 of you have to come up with a separate idea and pitch it. and then I guess the teacher looking over, or the professor looking over that course would select the ideas that are feasible and say, okay, all of these ideas can go through, and you need to find a team for these ideas, right? And then a lot of other people would get rejected. I guess you could, so I'm not sure if you want to elaborate on your first idea got rejected, but you were able to come up with another one?
So my first idea was more, I think this is like right when the protests were happening in Hong Kong, and I saw how the cops were using, radar jammers to block everyone's cell signals. So people were communicating through like Bluetooth and all these other things, and I thought the idea of the police using having the ability to block people's completely their phone signals I thought that was a really cool idea, and I kind of want to recreate that, or kind of like give it a test on what I could find. So I did have a pretty decent idea of, we get our own, what are they called? The little chips that you use for, I forgot the name. It's been so long, but you get the little chip, you plug it in, then you can basically generate the airwaves or grab radio waves, and then from there you could probably see what other people's IMSI numbers were. Now that I'm saying it out loud, I think I know why I got shot down. That was probably a very bad idea. Wow, all right. So so that was mine, and then my partner at the time came up with the other idea. Sure. So they're like, okay, my idea was more suited for the other class. I think we had a class on 5G, was it? Or communications. So he's like, that's more of a project for that class.
So Kurt, you mentioned how the professor's kind of looking to see, is it feasible? Is that the main thing they're looking for, whether to accept or reject an idea? Or are there any other factors that you maybe know of?
There's also not just feasibility, but is it legal? It was illegal, sure. Is it related? Is it also related to information security enough, right? Because my project, it was bordering on software engineering, so I had to keep the goals in mind that like this is an information security capstone. So that's what I guess my professor was worried about. So that's kind of what they're looking for, right? And also, has it been done before? Like, what are you bringing new to the table? That's really important, because I know a lot of ideas were good, but they got rejected just because they were done before too many times. There's too much, you're treading over the same water that other people have done. Yeah.
So if your idea gets rejected, basically you join somebody else's group.
Yeah.
So how?
Or you could go solo.
Yeah.
You didn't have to join a group.
That's true.
It's also
It's easier with the group, but a bunch of people went solo.
I think the other thing to
What are the team sizes for the capstone?
I think it was like a max of 2.
for our area it was like 2, but like I think it's been like 3 now.
I think ours, we had 3, and then maybe you could get 4 if you had a good reason for it, which is what I was told.
All right, we got a question over here.
Yeah, quick question. So from a fourth year perspective, how much did your project change? So obviously for Capstone, you have the first 14 weeks to come up with an idea and research it and come up with a proposal to give to our admin. And then the next semester, our final semester, you have it to, develop it. You now know what to do to ground. How much did your idea change from when you originally started? Like, this is what we got approved. All right, 3 weeks in, it's looking little tough. Week 8, we're probably not gonna be able to do this. How much from each of your perspective did your idea originally change in order for you to meet the deadline and meet whether it's feasible and given the resources and time from the program?
I think even before getting approved, your idea will change. You have an idea in your head, and then you'll pitch it, and then maybe your professor's maybe take a look at this or take a look at this, and kind of spin it off. So I think even from inception, it will kind of change. So over time, I think once you start getting into the weeds and kind of doing the research piece, that's where your kind of mindset will also shift, because it's you might have thought it would be a little easier, or maybe it's something you can't really do. So always have a good relationship with the professor, and always keep them kind of in the loop, or get feedback from him and try to figure out where you want to take it next, right? Because it's not everything is doable right off the bat. So maybe there's something you have to look into, or need some advice somewhere here. So guidance is pretty helpful.
Yeah. In my case, my projects, I remember when I started, I was looking at first-person shooters. So I was interested in detecting malicious behavior in first-person shooters, and I had a lot of good ideas about how I'd go about doing that. But when I started doing the research portion, As I mentioned before, I started, like, there was a lot of information on first-person shooters already in terms of using machine learning to detect malicious behavior. So I would just be going over the same things that have been done before. There are really good talks specifically on that from like Valve on CSGO and such. So I had to shift to something, okay, what can I bring new to the table? And I looked at, I guess, the real-time strategy genre. So that was pretty quick, honestly. That was in the first maybe couple months I shifted there. But going into the proposal, I already done a lot of work. Like, my proposal was amazing, which allowed me to kind of be lazy for the first couple of months of the second semester, or last semester, I guess. But yeah, because I already did most of the work, to be honest, up at that point. There's just a few things I had to execute on, which I wasn't able to do at the end, but that's...
We ran out of money. So we wanted a heat sensor, but those things were like horribly expensive.
Yeah.
So we kind of we had to change it midway through building it. So like through the second semester, we had to change it. Like, okay, we can't feasibly do a heat sensor, so we had to switch it to, I think it was a motion sensor instead. So yeah, it can change depending on what your circumstances are. I wasn't willing to shell out $500-600 for a heat sensor, so like $20 for a tiny little, I think it was from a Lego set heat sensor, like the proximity sensor. I'm like, this works. Just found it in a box. This is fine.
Okay, thank you. Do you guys think it's more valuable to choose a topic that you already have expertise in, or choose something that is newer? I guess I'm just asking this because if you already have experience, you have the potential to do something really in-depth and really cool. But if it's more, if it's something newer, you could round out your resume or delve into something you're interested in. I guess I'm just kind of wondering.
Yeah, I think there's like pros and cons to both. Like, if you have experience in the topic, then maybe you can get more into that topic. But if you want to learn something new, or like, you're excited by like a new technology or some new something that's coming up, then maybe that's something you want to learn. So it's like, I think there's pros and cons to both, and it's kind of like, what do you enjoy more, right? Like, if you're really into something that you've done before, maybe you want to do that. Or there's some new technology that gets you really excited, maybe you want to do that. So I think it's kind of like a mixture of what you want. Any other thoughts?
I would agree with that. It's your call, really. It's hard to tell.
You can kind of see the difference, though. He went with something he was passionate about. I knew nothing about either thing, really. So it was fun to mess around and hit roadblocks and try to overcome them, as opposed to knowing something about it and knowing where you want to go. There's a little beauty of not knowing what you're going to do next. I have my proposal. I know where my end goal is, but I have no idea how I'm getting there. Keep in mind, we did our project like during the pandemic, so meeting up with your teammates and I guess if you had something hardware related, meeting up to even remotely do that was not possible. So depending on how crazy you want to get with it, it could be good to do something that you're interested in. But then again, it's like, are you willing to venture into the unknown?
I think like the interesting is also important because you are doing it for 8 months, right? Like, if there's something that you don't like, I don't know if it's like your quality of work might decrease just because you just don't like it, right? You're like, oh, I don't want to do this capstone. So find something like you're interested in, so that way it kind of drives you to kind of do really good on it.
Just to add on to that, again, I was really passionate about video games, so that was like a driving force. Like, I want to do something related to that, and it keeps my engagement. I knew nothing about machine learning, and that's something I wanted to learn about, right? So that I had these two kind of, I guess, combine those to make something that was engaging for me and allowed me to stick with it.
Yeah, we actually got a question here online.
Could, I guess, one of you or multiple of you break down like the timeline of the Capstone project? So like, we talked about the proposal, like kind of what do you do next, and then so on.
I guess since I did it,
It's been a while.
since I did it a year ago or however long it's been. I guess, yeah, since you're in it, like maybe, but I think I know it. Okay, so you have your initial for proposal. I think that's the first couple months or month maybe. You have to write a feasibility report, problem statement, like a feasibility report. Like, is this actually doable. And then that's the first couple months, I think, you send that proposal in, and then you kind of work on the idea of how you're going to implement that proposal for the rest of that semester. And the next semester, you're supposed to actually implement what you proposed, right? I believe that's the timeline, or general timeline.
There's a question up at the top.
So I think all your projects were really cool. I have a question though in regards to how to explain this better. So for example, you leverage machine learning to find cheating and star factors. Awesome. To me that sounds like very technical in a way, like a very high level or advanced level of understanding to complete that task.
Mhm.
My question is not so much like what was the least technical thing that you threw, but like what are some of the, like, what's the range for, because like for me that sounds like a very high thing to achieve, maybe for first year and I don't know anything about it, but like I'm just trying to understand like, what are some projects that weren't as technical as like machine learning and then like, at the end of the spectrum, maybe do it for.
You want to take that?
So sorry, is the question what is a less technical project you could?
Like for example, like yours, like to me is super.
Yeah.
Machine learning is
Right,
awesome,
right.
stuff like that, but like it seems like it's a very like dense thing.
Sure. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like let's say for example you want to, create a service that educates people on information security.
Okay. Yeah.
Would that be a viable?
Yeah.
I'm sure. Yeah. Honestly, I would recommend you don't have to do something that like again is extremely technically demanding. I don't think you do.
Yeah.
It depends on your I guess the professor, but I would honestly recommend you do something extremely creative, or try to add something extremely creative. I know a lot of friends who just did something super information security sounding and they hated it. To be honest, it was like super technical and they hated what they were doing. They weren't super engaged. Be creative, do something like that's a great idea. I would have never thought of that, and that might actually be like a really good way to go about your capstone.
I think like also to like add on to what he said is like the breadth or like the scope doesn't have to be technical. You can do like a research paper, right? Like maybe there's some new technology that there isn't much research on. Like you can just research it, and that can be something you can present, or like you can be very technical. So the spectrum's pretty broad, and it's pretty much up to you to kind of figure out like where you want to be, right? Like maybe you're not technical now, but maybe doing the capstone will get you into that technical side or something like that, right? So it's.
Are they really expecting like your project, if you are doing something technical, are they expecting it to be fully functional, or are you allowed to just kind of get most of it done?
I think they wanted it for the major components of it to be functional. Or obviously they want you to like complete your project, but obviously with like time constraints or whatever else it may be. I know people who had, I think he had like some sort of automatic code builder kind of thing. He got the main parts of it working, but it was just smaller details that didn't work properly or entirely. He still passed, he still got a good mark. It's just ran out of time, didn't have enough. I think he was working solo. So they obviously want you to finish, but I don't think it entirely affects your mark, but obviously communicate with your professor if you're having issues.
I know like groups in my year did a lot of proof of concept stuff. So like things that like from a proof of concept point of view it would have worked, and then they can take that later on and make it into a full-fledged idea. But like getting the POC kind of working was kind of like their capstone.
Yeah.
Also kind of segues into, how is this thing graded? Are you graded on multiple deliverables? Is it just, what you got in the end, and then you get the grade? Is it pass, fail? How does that work?
It's multiple. So I think within the first semester the first semester is pretty much all just the writing aspect, the write-up, and the proposal. So I think it was every week you had to submit something new. So you had a report to do. It's like, what I did this week, what I plan on doing next week, kind of like that. So you're graded on all of that, and then when you actually build it, you also have to do similar thing as well, kind of report on what you did. So it's more of an evolving thing. And then at the end, I think you have to grade other people's capstones. So you go and watch other people's presentations, how they did, and then I think you have to do a report on that.
That was not a thing for us.
Oh, really?
I don't know if
I
that
had to
was
watch everyone's capstone. That was torture.
I think it's more, you're getting graded on how well you can project manage, to be honest. Like once your proposal goes through, you don't have to necessarily execute, like the POC doesn't have to be, completely successful, but you have to at least shown that like, hey, we put in the effort and we had a plan and we executed on the plan, and maybe it didn't work out, but like you have something to show for it.
So, I'm sorry, did you have something on that?
No, I think like they covered it. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So, sort of also along those lines, since you have multiple deliverables, how did you guys find it, or how easy was it to manage both the capstone and your fourth year courses? And maybe if you have any tips on how to manage that time, feel free to share.
So like my last year was online, so like we had a lot of like our course outlines online, so we had like a schedule of like when things were gonna come up. So what me and my partner did, we basically put like a Google Calendar together and just put in like all our deliverables or our assignments that are coming up, and kind of use that to kind of balance where we want to like spend our time. So I think like figuring out what you need to get done prior to kind of like winging it would be a good way of doing it. Just like have a rough idea of what you're doing for the week, what's next week looking like, and how to manage your time that way.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
You could alternatively just like book a room in the library and have enough caffeine to kill a small horse and just bang it out in one day. I do not recommend that though, by the way. Did not sleep, but
speaking from experience,
I'm gonna say no.
Yeah, I just had a question.
Sure.
So, doing the capstone class right now, and one thing like our teachers mentioned a lot is that like you don't necessarily have to like start from scratch. Like you can use some like kind of open source like tools or code to kind of build off of. And like, so how much did you guys do that? Like, did you build everything from scratch, or did you kind of cobble together some things?
For me, like we were mostly using Kubernetes and Docker, so those are like technologies that are kind of open for anybody kind of use. And then we applied like a forensics kind of spin to it. So based on what we learned in forensics and the techniques, we kind of tried to find a way to apply that to like a Docker system or a Kubernetes thing. So I think you can use other people, and I think part of like the proposal is researching what other people have done in that world or in that like spectrum of area. So I think like it's all fair game. But it's again like don't copy, like use it as a starting point and figure out what you can add to it.
In my case, it was very important that whatever game I chose for my capstone had to support essentially like a replay file system. So it could store information from a game in a very small file that can then be, that information can be extracted. And there was a open source tool that I think somebody created, I think it might have been Blizzard, I can't remember, to get information out of these replay files, which I can then ingest into training a machine learning model, right? And then I use PyTorch for that. So like I'm using a ton of other tools that other people have developed to complete my capstone. I would not recommend trying to do all those things from scratch.
Ours was more from scratch because we were working with the hardware directly, so it wasn't all too difficult to start from scratch because you got a signal from the hardware. You just got to interpret it how that signal works. So I think one of the only things that we used that was open source was like MySQL and I think maybe just a few other networking things just to get things up and running properly. But for the most part, it was just like all programmed by hand.
So mistakes, we all make them. What were some mistakes or challenges that you had to overcome? And what kind of advice would you give somebody trying to overcome certain challenges with the capstone?
I think failure is kind of like the part of learning. So we were working with a lot of Docker images and trying to do forensics on them. So a lot of the times our Docker images would corrupt or like malware would kind of escape and then we couldn't really do much about it. It wasn't a VM, so we would just revert to snapshots, but try to have a plan of like what you're trying to do, right? So like you can kind of identify the problems early on. Things aren't going to go to plan, so like just take it how it is. That's what I'd say.
Yeah. again, the feasibility report is important. You should really do a lot of research on that part to understand if you can actually execute. I had a good idea for how I would, like, the second half of my project in terms of, I don't want to get too technical or too much jargon, but I had this grand idea, and then the proposal looked crazy, and I'm like, this is crazy. And it was crazy, but I just didn't have the ability to execute on it in the end. But like, again, the proposal was amazing, so it was a good idea. I just didn't, I wasn't able to execute at the very end, but that's okay.
You know, make sure you pick a partner that you don't want to kill after a week.
That's very important.
That's very important.
Yeah.
Make sure it's someone you can get along with. I mean, I personally, my partner was fine, but I know other partners that were like, they did not agree. So things kind of like were not aligned properly with their capstone, but that's a big one. Overcoming any issues, like obviously working with hardware. Of course, that's like never gonna work properly. So getting sensors, getting all that other stuff working. Be prepared to, again, change if things go wrong. I can't tell you how many sensors we went through because, oh, this sensor doesn't work, that sensor doesn't work, or not, the wires aren't working, whatever it may be. So I guess know what your end goal is and know if there's any other ways you can get to that point.
So with the power of your hindsight and wisdom after a few years, is there anything you guys would have done differently with your projects?
Personally, I don't think so. I think like at the time, container buzzword was kind of buzzing around a lot, and then forensics was just very cool. So I think like we had a great time kind of doing it. And it also kind of helped my partner, at least for his co-op and things like that, and kind of get him into a full-time position. So like, I think going back, I think I wouldn't change anything.
I'm the same way. If I knew how difficult it was going to be, or like that I wasn't able, I wouldn't have been able to finish, I probably wouldn't have done it, to be honest. And I'm glad I did do it. So no, I wouldn't change anything.
Manage my time better.
Did you know that it's called sand because it's in between sea and the land?
Boo. That's not a question.
Who wrote that? Is it you, Patrick? No. Alright, I'll get to the bottom of that. Do you feel that your capstone was unique, obviously to a certain extent, because you need to have it be unique enough to pass, but did you feel it was very unique? In terms of the research, was there a lot to go off of?
Personally, I think it was unique. I think like with a lot of new technologies, there's a lot of people who adopt it early, so there was a lot of people adopting containers, but they weren't really thinking about the security aspect as it usually goes. So like the forensics aspect wasn't really covered. Traditional forensics is pretty well studied and kind of well established, but like this new container and ephemeral and cloud is kind of like a new kind of sphere for the forensics world. So I think like that aspect was pretty unique.
Yeah, in my case, I mean, the constraints were such that it was by nature unique. If I wanted to like compete with companies that have data sets that are, you know, millions and millions of files versus me, I can like pull maybe 10,000 from the internet and then try to build a model out of that. I have to use what I have and those constraints to kind of, you know, have an imbalanced data set. I have limited processing power, right? How can I build a model that can detect malicious behavior with that, right? And so with those constraints, it inherently gets something unique, right?
So you talked a bit about constraints, just kind of a hypothetical here. You had a metric bad workload of resources and money to go into this project. What would you try to achieve with that?
I think like with money, you can scale up pretty hard. Like if like Kurt was saying, you get those data sets, you can get like maybe cloud computing to help out with his stuff. But like think like that also brings new challenges, right? Like now you're dealing with a wide set of resources, wide set of things to manage. So
Yeah.
I think scale is kind of the limited, like it kind of helps you out being small scale, because then you're not worried about what if this data set corrupts that one, or like my Docker containers are out of control, or things like that. So like I think playing within a small set kind of gets you, or allows you the ability to kind of deep dive into that.
Also iterate quickly, right?
Yeah.
There's just a different load of technical challenges if I have something that big scale. I don't know what I would do, to be honest. I would have to completely reconsider how I'd approach it.
And then you got to take into the fact that it's like small groups, right? Like 2 to 3 people, right? Like you're not going to be running like an AWS cloud instance that manages like thousands of people and things like that, right? Like you're 2 to 3 people, so like play within like your workload and your, like avoid burnout, I guess, would be the challenge.
Yeah.
A little bit more specific to you, Kurt, because you work with machine learning and AI, which is kind of the in thing right now. What kind of challenges did you have with that aspect of your project?
Yeah. So as I just recently mentioned, like building models or training models works better with larger data sets. And then in addition, the new in thing in machine learning is generalized data sets. So you're not specifically, instead of looking for malicious behavior in StarCraft 2, for example, you look for malicious behavior in all RTS games or all video games, right? You make these very broad generalized data sets that you build off of, because making specialized data sets requires you to go in and hand tune the model to find things, and that's not the trajectory of machine learning. People are generally just going into, give me as much data as possible, and did it find something malicious? No. Okay, retrain, backpropagate, retrain, backpropagate. Like, so that's like the way the industry is kind of going. Right? Sorry, I don't know what the question was. It was like, yeah.
Something about machine learning.
Yeah, machine learning. Yeah.
So like for me, I'm in third year. I have absolutely no idea what I want to do for the capstone. We talked a little bit about finding your passion and stuff, but like, what kind of places can you look to get inspiration and get ideas on what you might do? Kind of get the ball rolling.
Yeah, I think like for me, a lot of it was like just reading like the news in terms of security, just seeing like what's popping up right now, what's going on in the world, like what is cool, what is new. And then kind of using your co-op as well. Like throughout your co-op, you probably find things like in industry or like at your job that you might be able to use for your co-op or for your capstone. So like just keeping a close ear to the ground, seeing what's going on in the world helped me out.
If you took creativity courses, I would utilize those resources to come up with ideas. Like really try to think outside the box, because that'll help you. If you do something very novel, it'll help maintain engagement, which is important.
Honestly, a great way to look for ideas was just to browse GitHub, see what new repositories and see what other people are doing, and maybe through that you can get an idea. So I think a few people got a few ideas through GitHub. Obviously, don't copy exactly what they're doing on GitHub, but maybe you can do something adjacent to something that already exists on GitHub. Because there's always something new going up there. I think someone made it was like a scraper that just looked at all the GitHubs, all the recently posted GitHubs, and tried to find like passwords or any of this other random stuff that they would put up. I don't know if that proposal got accepted or not, but that would just browsing GitHub. They're like, oh, look at all these random passwords people are just putting up. I wonder if I can find something with them.
I have a question. So I know you guys all said that your groups are either like 2 or 3 people. So I think now they're kind of like opening up a little bit more. Like there's more groups of like 4 or more. So then that kind of leads to the like project management challenge. So even if it wasn't like your exact experience, would you have some tips of project management, like making sure everyone's on track?
Yeah, I guess like define like your roles and responsibilities within the project, right? Like maybe you want everybody working on one piece of the proposal, or like maybe somebody's very good at something else. Like play to your strengths, and then just coordinate, right? Like you don't want to have too many chefs in the kitchen, and then figure out what works best for you. Not everyone can be working at the same time, or like maybe schedules don't work out. So find something that works for everybody, right? And communication is key. Make sure that you guys are all on the same page. you guys know what's happening with the project. Like you don't want to log in and like into your proposal document and all of a sudden it's like not what you expected or things like that. So set expectations.
Yeah, set realistic goals and set goals, right? That
Yeah.
you try to meet on a weekly basis.
Yeah, I think the role thing was very important. I guess maybe have like one leader rather than everybody trying to fight for power. I think that does not really end it very well.
In terms of the professors involved in here, are they somebody that you can come to for guidance a bit, bounce ideas off them? You know, what's their involvement?
For me, it was pretty involved. Like we had like bi-weekly touch points with our profs. And it was kind of like, hey, like what are you doing? Are you facing any problems? Where can I kind of help or provide input or guidance? So I think like get that relationship with your professor built and figure out like where they can kind of help you and where you can leverage them best. They do have lots of experience and a lot of knowledge, so make sure you can kind of use them as like a Google or like a maybe like a Chat GPT or whatever. But I don't know. I think it's good to have a good relationship with the prof.
Yeah. Yeah, utilize the prof. I think we got in touch with some data scientists somewhere who didn't help very much, but yeah, that was through the professor. So yeah, I would take those opportunities and use what you can.
Anybody else have any other questions?
My question is directed towards Kurt because my group is actually also doing something pretty similar to what your group was doing. So I'm kind of curious how you guys actually went about like starting to even learn about machine learning, because I know you mentioned you didn't have any experience with it before. Was that the case for everyone in your group?
Yeah.
Or, okay.
Pretty much, yeah.
How did you guys like actually even start like trying to learn that stuff?
Just tutorials online, like going through. Honestly, yeah, just going through tutorials. I'm trying to remember what we used. I used a few different ones. A lot of reading too. God, I can't remember the exact name of the tutorials we used. But yeah, there's like trial and error. Like it's gonna not work, and then you're just like, well, what do we fix, right?
Did you guys end up going like kind of deep into math stuff? Because I know a lot of ML can get pretty mathy very quickly.
We tried to keep it simple. Yeah, it can get really complicated really fast. That was so I assigned my group consisted of me and two other people. One of them was really good at programming, so scripting, and then another one was really good at math, so that we kind of set those roles and responsibilities for who would help with what parts of the project, right? So I specifically didn't get too deep in the math. I got enough, but that was a different.
Right.
Yeah.
That's how you work with it.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Thank you.
All right. Does anybody have any other questions as well?
A couple of years ago, before I started this program, I heard that when you guys present the capstones, this is completely rude. I have no idea if this is true. I just wanted to get this through. That sometimes like people from the industry come to the capstone presentation. Is that true, or is it just like a working school?
I think for me it was different because it was kind of like the first COVID year, so it was pretty much like a Zoom presentation or like a pre-recorded one, so I didn't have anybody in industry specific, but like after I graduated I kind of threw my paper at my people like where I worked and things like that, and they kind of picked it up and we kind of had conversations and things like that, so use that as like leverage.
Similar with me. We were still in like COVID, and so we're kind of half COVID. I don't know. It was like I guess we didn't really go to class. Yeah, so we just submitted online. But that would have been really dope, to be honest. Yeah. Yeah. I wish. I would have loved to give my presentation.
Yeah, like now that I'm thinking back, like there was a group that did a capstone with a company, so there are like company sponsored capstones that you can do, so like maybe that way you can present it to the company, like they're kind of helping a company out while doing their capstone, and some of that might have been like useful as well.
Yeah, the company did come. I think it was more research based for their capstone. I think they just wanted like a bunch of extra hands to work with stuff. But that was like before we started our capstone. So you got an option. It's like you do your own capstone or the company gives you a bunch of ideas and then you work with those.
You just get developed
It's like being like a research student, I guess, like in a PhD or something, right? Like kind of helping out.
Unpaid, by the way, unfortunately.
If somebody is interested in trying to collaborate with a company for that, is there resources Sheridan provides, or are you kind of on your own to?
Yeah, for our year, we kind of have a list of topics and companies that kind of came to the Sheridan program and kind of provided them. But if you have like companies that you were interested, maybe reach out and see if they would be interested in helping out.
I don't remember that being a part of our thing.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Honestly, it was just like the one company that reached out. We got a notification. Well, professor told us before everything started, hey, you have these two options. One is like with the company, one is with your own, and that's the only thing I heard about the company. So maybe I don't know. I wasn't really part of it.
Thank you.
I had some kind of like pointing questions, I guess.
Yeah, go for it.
So for Selma, so I know you guys are doing like we're doing malware.
Yeah.
So this is gonna sound weird,
Go.
but where did you like get your samples that you're using to test?
We got it from the malware class actually. So
Okay.
During our malware class, we were actually provided some samples, and so we kind of just leveraged those. Yeah, we just ran those in there.
And then for talent, I know you said you guys were using the hardware sensors. You kind of went through a few. How much did you actually go through?
Oh, I don't remember. I remember because I think we had like two different. The actual thing was supposed to pick up like two different sensors. I think we went through maybe 4 or 5. It's like they didn't work, or like saw something messed up, or we weren't getting the correct readings. So it was kind of like, all right, we'll try another one. Try something different this time. Like my friend's like dad worked with them, so he got them for really cheap.
Oh.
So it wasn't too bad. It was fine.
In our case, we needed to find replay files of people hacking, and that's not easy to find. So you just like browse the website, like you'll find a random post that, hey, is this guy hacking? And then you post the file and you just download that, and then you start gathering all those and build a list and repository of that. Yeah.
So you guys do any actual cheating in StarCraft?
No, because we suck at the game. So you want people that are like good, but then also hack, and so
Maybe
that's a good way to build a model.
better.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
You see, his entire capstone was about him being able to cheat without getting caught.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
You
How do
should
I
check his
avoid-
rank.
Is
Yeah.
Kurt the best like StarCraft player in the world now?
Yeah.
I hope so. I should be.
Anybody else want to get their questions in? If not, I won't hold you guys hostage. I think we're good to wrap up here. Once again, thank you to everybody who came out. Thank you to our panelists for taking the trek down here. I really appreciate you coming out, and I'm sure the members do as well. So next meeting, we're actually taking a bit of a break. March 9th we'll be back, so best of luck on your exams. If you're in third year,